Hey, we are back in Zechariah. We are almost done with this Old Testament book, and what a journey it has been. Zechariah is full of prophecy, so much to really break down and try to understand. It's just so much stuff, but really in-depth stuff here in these last few chapters. Today we're talking about chapter 13, and it starts out, this is titled Cleansing from Sin. And again, one thing that stuck out when I was reading this chapter is they used that term "on that day" so many times, just like they did in chapter 12, okay? And chapter 12 ended with Jerusalem mourning for the pierced one. We talked about that, the one that was once rejected, but now embraced, the Messiah, Jesus Christ. So chapter 13, again, is going to start with verse 1 stating that a fountain will be opened to cleanse of sin and impurity. And the fountain is used many times in the Bible to represent like God. And here I love that it uses the word fountain, because we know that Jesus, the pierced one, is the living water. A fountain represents a continuous flowing of water, and that's what Jesus is. Like, his love for us is continuous. It's never ending. He is the living water. We all need that living water to live. So I love that they use a fountain here. That living water is from the one who died for our sins. So of course this fountain will cleanse the people, right? And then it's going to go into verses 2 through 6. And so verse 2 states that the idols will be banished. They're not going to be remembered, totally removed, okay? Like, God is meaning business, okay? He's going to get rid of all the idols, because we know, if you read the Old Testament, you know that time and time again, Israel, God's people, were led away from him many times to worship false gods, idols, things that had to be removed from their life to turn back to him. Nothing new there. So God's going to banish it. They're not going to be remembered. He's getting rid of them on that day, it says. And he will remove the false messengers, the ones who posed as the prophets, the ones who would say false things that were from God. And it says that they're going to start to feel the pressure. They're going to feel the shame. They're going to start trying to do like, oh, no, I wasn't a false messenger. And if you read verse 3, it's pretty brutal when you go into it, and it's talking about, if anyone still prophesies after God has like gotten rid of them, their father and mother to whom they were born will say to them, "You must die because you have told lies in the Lord's name." And so these false prophets, they're would go to these extremes to make others believe that they were true prophets. They would often, wound themselves, like self-mutilation in service to idols, or just to carry out those lies. And, verses 4 through 6, it continues on with like their schemes at which they would try to say, "Oh no, I wasn't a false messenger. I was a farmer." See, these wounds were by accident. So again, on that day, it's going to be a cleansing. It's going to get rid of all that. And then it starts in verse 7. And this is just verses 7 through 9. That's it for this last part of this chapter, that's titled "The Shepherd Struck, the Sheep Scattered." But it's pretty powerful what is said in these verses. So we know that the shepherd is Jesus, right? So that first part of this verse, "Awake, sword, against my shepherd, against the man who is close to me." So we know that God called for Jesus, the shepherd, to be struck. At his crucifixion, it was not a case of leaving him to chance. It was not in error that he was struck by the sword at the end of his crucifixion. This was ordained by God, by his Father. The sword struck, killing the man, Jesus, the one closest to the Father. And then the rest of the verse says, strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered, and I will turn my hand against the little ones. So if you think back to when Jesus was crucified, his disciples scattered. They were scattered during his time of journeying to the cross, on the cross, and after the cross. And if you go back, this was so interesting. I did not know this right here. I love that Jesus quotes Old Testament prophecy in the New Testament. So you're going to go read Matthew chapter 26, verse 31. And it says these words about strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. And this was during a time when Jesus was predicting Peter's denial. And we know, like, you just think about after the crucifixion, what happened with his disciples in each one of them. Now, starting in verse 8 through 9, we are told the whole land will experience a time when 2/3 will be struck down and perish. And then we're going to see that 1/3 will be put into the fire. So if you read Jeremiah 30, verse 7, it says there that these times are going to be the time of Jacob's trouble. So many believe that this is the great tribulation. This is the horrific times of the tribulation, because we know that you have the church age and you have like the rapture, and then you have the tribulation. And the tribulation is going to be this stuff right here. People being thrown in the fire, perishing, that separating. But the end of verse 9 says that the Jewish people that survive the tribulation come to salvation. They cry out to God and they accept Jesus. They call on his name. And some believe that these people will be a part of the 144,000 that is mentioned in Revelation chapter 7 and chapter 14. And my first thought when reading that was, wow, God is still calling them his people. He's still wanting them to call on him. After all, like, I guess the stubbornness and the denial, like, he's still saying his people. So again, tough stuff. Okay. But as you can see, it's important stuff. These are the end time stuff. This is prophesied. And if Jesus quotes it, then you know it's important. So we're going to start. The last chapter is 14, and it's actually going to continue on, and it's because it's titled The Lord Comes and Reigns. So we know that this is going to be the second coming, the millennium, the last battle, the new heaven, the new earth, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot to break down. So stick with me. We got one more chapter in Zechariah. We're going to finish up this Old Testament book. If you hadn't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Save this to watch later if you need to. I appreciate you.